Hey guys, today I am making a picture frame for my bride. So do us a favor, hit that subscribe button and that little bell icon. We've got tons of great projects coming up you guys don't want to miss. So do us a favor, hit that button. So today we're using our brand new stencil. This is the Better With You picture frame stencil. So I'm super happy about this. I really like this thing. It carved really well. We're using a piece of 1x12 pine. We're putting some color in there. We'll leave links in the description below for this and everything that we used on today's video. So let's get after it.
We used a piece of select pine from Lowe's or Home Depot to do this sign. This stuff carves really nice, but it will bleed if you're not careful. So it's a good idea to put 1 or 2 light coats of clear before you start your layout. Now stencils will bow sometimes, so we use this little adhesive tape from Tombow, and this stuff works great. We just put it on the corners and in the middle and different areas to make sure that it lays flat on the board. And then it comes off really easy. Once you're done with your layout, then you just take a little pink eraser and it rubs right off the board and the stencil. To get the rounded corners on our signs, Dad just uses the freestanding disc sander and he just rounds them off nice and even. Now, if you put some sort of measuring device on there, they might be a little bit off, but you can't tell. We started off with the profile bit at 1/8 of an inch deep. Now normally we go 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch deep, but one thing to remember is that the deeper you go, the wider your cut will be. So on these thin letters, you want to make sure not to go outside the line too much, otherwise you could end up connecting them where you don't want to. This font is kind of difficult to carve, but it's actually a lot of fun. It's a different kind of challenge from doing like the script part of it or artwork. It really kind of hones your skill. The thing I like about this particular stencil is that it really has several different elements to it. You have your thin kind of square font, and then you have your script font, so it allows you to work on multiple things. The thing about the script is when lines cross, like this one right here, you really want to try to make that a continuous cut. That way you don't get any bobbles or they're not mismatched once it's done. When you're doing something like a heart where it comes down to a point, you'll notice that Dad lifts his router to where he's cutting with just the tip of the router bit. Now you want to be careful doing this that you don't cut too shallow. So it's kind of a fine line between having a sharp point but cutting so shallow that once you sand the board off, that you don't sand away part of your carving. Now you'll notice as Dad's carving this heart, he's not going all the way to the line. Again, with something like this, it's better to work your way out to the line instead of trying to get it dead on for the first cut. Then you really cut your room for error down. A little trick for when you're doing a line on the edge of the board is to use your fingers underneath the base plate as a guide on the edge of the board. Now it doesn't always work on, say, like a live edge where the edge isn't straight. Then it gets a little more difficult, but this is a really good way to keep your line as straight as possible because long straight cuts are some of the hardest cuts you can do. The next bit we used is the 1/8 inch spiral upcut, and we used that to get the outline of the square where the picture is going to go. Now you could do this with the profile bit, that would work, but the profile bit gives you an angle to the cut. The spiral upcut bit gives you a perfect vertical line, and that's really what you want for something like this. Then we use the 1/4 inch spiral upcut to take all of that wood out of there because the picture is actually going to sit inside the board. When you're doing something like this, just take your time. It throws a ton of sawdust, and it's really easy to kind of lose your spot and nick your edges. Then we use the 3/8 90-degree bit at 1/4 of an inch to give a big fat line around our stencil. And I really like this because it helps it stand out a little bit more. It doesn't just kind of blend into the outside of the board, makes it look almost like a separate piece. Then we use that same bit to go in and take out the areas of the hearts that we want to spray red. Then the last bit we used is our 45-degree chamfer bit to give it a nice rounded edge and a good clean look. Now this is where taping skills really come in handy. You want to make sure if you have multiple colors on your board that you don't let your tape cover anything that you want black. So we're taping off the hearts that are going to be red, but Dad had to make sure that he didn't let that tape overlap to where he has a blank spot in his black. Once that dried, Dad taped everything that's not going to be red. Now, one thing a lot of people forget is to tape the edges. You don't want your edges red either. Well, unless you do, but we didn't. So he made sure to tape off everything so no red overspray got into what he wants to be black. Once that's done, then we use the 80 grit disc to take most of the black off, and we went back with a random orbital and a 120 to give it a good smooth finish. When you're going to put a picture in something, you want to do all your clear first. So we showed one coat, but we actually probably have 4 or 5 coats on this thing before we put the picture in. Now, to insert the picture, super easy. We just used some thick Starbond, put a few dabs on it, and then we used the accelerator on the back of the picture and held it on there for about 10 seconds till it dried. Also, a good idea is to laminate the picture before you put it in there.
I'm really happy with the way this came out, guys. It was a little tricky, some of the carving, and it was a lot of detail. The profile bit worked perfect for almost all of this thing. The pine had a little bit of issue with bleeding, but it wasn't to the point where I couldn't sand it out. Overall, it came out really better than I thought it would. This new stencil, I think, is going to be super popular, and especially if you want to do stuff around Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, that kind of thing, I think this thing would really be a big hit. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. We appreciate you. Again, we'll have links in the description below for everything that we used. We love you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.